nerds, what's up? Welcome to my episode-by-episode comparison of Amazon's Wheel of Time TV show versus the book, where I quickly go over all of the differences between the show and the book, and we have made it to the last episode of Season 2, Episode 8. As a quick reminder, I've said this the last couple of episodes, but really nothing in this episode is like the book because of how they have rearranged things. So instead of just saying every scene, this exact scene wasn't in the book, just kind of assume that the way scenes are organized, they are not in the book that way, and instead I'm going to call out similarities and differences of more of the details so you can kind of get a picture of it. With that being said, let's get into it. So the story of Rand and Ishamael is just complicated. I don't have time to go into the whole thing, but Ishamael actually goes over to the Dark One as like one of the first to do so. So I wouldn't say like there was some great betrayal. Like they already knew they would have been at opposing sides. But like the vibe here is fine. Like there's stuff that's fine. So yes, the White Cloaks are in Fallen preparing to go against the Shansen. Like that is definitely a big plot point. So I wanted to bring a bit of fandom fun into this part where Egwene is threatened to have her hands cut off, because there's a whole discussion in the fandom about hands and weaving and are hands needed to make weaves. And basically, technically, you don't need your hands to make weaves, but because so many Aes Sedai learn by doing it, it's like they can't do it without it because that's how they learned, and it's so tied in their minds to their hand motions that they can't do the weaves without their hands. But technically, you should be able to because hands are not required for weaving. So there's like just a lot of discussion about that in the fandom and how needed hands are. So anyway, that reminded me of that, and I thought it was kind of funny. So Mat's story is completely different, and I've just covered that a lot in the last episodes, and I don't want to repeat myself. So if you're interested, you could go see like episodes 6 and 7 where I talk about that, but just so none of this is here. We've already discussed it. So when Nynaeve captures one of the Soldams and puts the thing on her, she is sickened by the collar, like literally sickened. Like I feel like in the show, she felt more empowered and was like kind of happy to hurt her. Like Nynaeve is sickened so much to the fact that she won't even let Egwene hold the little leash because it's so gross. But yeah, the Soldam is super nervous. She doesn't want anyone to see her with the collar on because the collar shouldn't work on her because they don't think they can channel. And so if someone sees that the collar works on her, it means she can channel and she will become a Domine. Just want to point out here that Moiraine did release Lan's bond, and you guys argued with me that she didn't, and she just said she did. So at least I got one thing right. So my poor baby Ingtar. I was actually pretty sure halfway through this season that they wouldn't give him his story just because there wasn't enough time to develop it. Like I could tell. I just knew that even if they did do it, it probably wouldn't hit. But it's one of my very favorite parts of The Great Hunt, so you get to hear it right now, right here, right now. So Ingtar as a character was just way more involved in The Great Hunt because all the boys were together. We just saw a lot more of him, and because Rand was with them, Rand definitely talked to him a lot, and it was kind of cool because, you know, Ingtar seemed very much like he is in the show in terms of like, wow, he's this grand person. But what you don't know as a reader is he's actually a Dark Friend, and he's actually been serving the Dark One for a while, but recently regrets it, like regrets that he's given his life to that. And so in his head, he's like, if I can just get the Horn of Valyr back, that will absolve me. Like it will forgive me. I can come back to the light. And so he's like so passionate and so like driven to find this horn because secretly for him, it's like, this is how I get my redemption. And you don't find that out until the very end of the book when he reveals it to Rand. And it's kind of like this, no man can walk so long in the shadow that he cannot come again to the light. And then he willingly sacrifices himself and dies like to let Rand and the other people escape, like as his way of trying to atone for what he's done. It, for me, is like a very emotional part of The Great Hunt because I remember the first time reading it being so floored by that reveal and also so emotional by just like the turn of events. I understand why they didn't have time for it in the show, but like it does make me a little sad just because it's such a great storyline. So what's funny is I mentioned in comments earlier this season that I thought these seals were fake or representations of the seals, which is why I haven't talked about them. But I guess they're the real seals, which surprised me because first of all, the seals in the book are about the size of a hand, and they don't get broken all at once, and they're hidden all over, and their locations have been lost to time, and they just get broken throughout the series. So that's a surprise. It's different. So I admittedly sort of laughed when Turok dies here because it's just so different than in the book. And so I wasn't expecting it. I just wasn't expecting. So Rand and him actually have this really intense sword battle because Turok is a Heron blade master and recognizes that Rand has the Heron sword. And so they have a blade master fight person to person. And very specifically, Rand does not use the one power against Turok in the fight. The book knife doesn't sizzle locks like this. Okay, let's talk about Egwene's rescue here. So Nynaeve, Min, and Elaine rescue Egwene. It's actually just in her room. It's not in a battle. And Egwene has figured out the channeling thing, kind of like she has in the show. She's realizing that the Soldams are just weaker in the power, essentially, than the people who become Dominés. But Egwene does put her collar on Rhenna, and funnily enough, she hits her first with the water pitcher before doing it, which I think would have been really funny in the show. Obviously, they weren't in the right situation, but yes, she does hit her with the water pitcher. And then she makes Rhenna feel a ton of pain through the collar, like as revenge, and Nynaeve has to pull Egwene off and stop her. And Egwene just breaks down and starts sobbing and is just like so traumatized by what has happened and just saying like, you don't understand how much pain she made me feel. And Egwene wants to kill Rhenna, and Nynaeve has to be like, that's revenge. And as Aes Sedai, we're not supposed to do that. And so they decide instead to leave Rhenna and the other one they had captured with the leashes, like the leash on the hook, which they kind of did in the show. And then they can't move, right? They can't leave. That traps them there. So they will be found collared, meaning that they will have to be turned into Dominé in their society. And like, that's how they leave them. Oh, one quickly thing I want to ask book readers, because magic-wise, just to discuss, I think it's kind of interesting. Like, they are both collared in the show. And I don't know how that works. Like, the whole time I was watching that, I was like, well, couldn't Rhenna still control Egwene through her collar? And then Egwene would control Rhenna through her collar, so it would just be like a fight? I don't think they could both, two people could be collared and leashed book-wise. That's my feelings. I'd love for book readers to weigh in. So Hopper actually dies earlier in the books, I believe. He does die in a White Cloak fight. I just don't think it's this fight. I might be wrong. I can't remember because there's a lot of White Cloak fights in the books in the first few. And I want to say it's not in the Great Hunt. It's earlier, I think. So Mat is with the gals after rescuing Egwene and everybody, and they are stuck between the Stanchion and the White Cloaks, and it's a super desperate moment. Like, everyone is about to like die, or like it's scary, and that's when Mat blows the horn. So it's like a much more desperate moment in the book. So Mat isn't one of the heroes of the horn, and I don't really want to say why the show is doing this because I don't know how much they're going to go into it next season, and I don't want to spoil that because I know a lot of non-book readers watch my videos, but he is not a hero of the horn, period. However, something does happen to Mat that I think they're going to try to wrap in to a Hero of the Horn storyline. Oh, and Uno is also not a Hero of the Horn. Uno's also not dead, if you remember. But yeah, he's not a hero of the horn. So it is a thing in the book that Min's visions always come true, and a lot of the book readers were kind of like, are they going to depart from that from the show? So like, it seems that they're going to keep that, like Min's visions are always true. As we talked before, Min's visions were not like this, like direct like that. They were very hazy. I do think it's interesting that in the show they kind of definitely did a fake out because the vision Min sees is different, right? It's much more personal, whereas this one, it's from far away. I mean, that's classic show though. You know, you gotta make the drama. Okay, so the ending is obviously very different in the book, so I'm just gonna point a couple things out. Everyone is together, but it's much more with a lot of other people, like armies. The heroes from the Horn come and join under Rand's dragon banner. He has like a physical dragon banner, and they come and join him, and they're marching to a huge battle with everyone. And then like on the way there, Rand gets kind of like taken up into the sky, and him and Ishii have a sword fight. And it's like a really intense sword fight, and it's pasted across the sky for everyone to see. It's not at the end, you know how Moiraine sends up that big dragon, fire dragon? No, the thing that's pasted across the sky in fire is Rand and Ishii having this sword fight, and everyone on the ground can like see it as if it's projected in the sky. And while they're fighting, Rand and Ishii, I don't know why I'm calling him that, Ishmael, while they're fighting, Ishmael thinks that Rand has blown the horn. And Rand has this moment of being like, oh, you don't know everything. You don't know Mat blew the horn. You think it's me. And so that's kind of like a cool moment too, because it's like this thing of like, oh, maybe the Forsaken have weaknesses. Like they don't know everything. And then, so Lan is the one who has trained him this whole time to be good at the sword. And Rand feels like to defeat Ishmael, he's going to have to do something that Lan said you only do in desperate moments, which is basically you die to kill your opponent, like you fall on your own sword, essentially. And so he does a move that leaves him open to getting harmed, defeats Ishii, and then Ishmael stabs him. And it's like this wound that won't quite heal right. Okay, as I'm just describing this out loud, I'm realizing that maybe they're having Matt's dagger replace that wound. It's all coming together now. So maybe that's the wound that won't heal. That's interesting. Ishmael does it. And then also the Heron brand. Yes, that does happen, except it happens way earlier in the Great Hunt in a different confrontation between Ishmael and Rand. Okay, let's talk about my feelings. I was really nervous going into this episode because I think most people agreed that episode 8 of season 1 was not great. Like, even people who liked the show much more than me, most people I talked to just like really struggled with episode 8. So I was kind of nervous because if you guys have been watching since the beginning, you'll know that around episode 4, I was pretty disappointed, but then 5, 6, and 7 all were huge improvements, and I was really enjoying myself, especially like in 6 and 7. I was feeling very positive, and in fact, I've already kind of started lightly writing my season review. Like, I just keep the ideas, make sure I have them in. And I was already kind of playing with this idea that my season review was probably going to be like, it took time to get there. You know, is it too little too late, but we're on an upward trajectory. That was kind of how I was feeling. I'm really sorry, guys. I did not like this episode. I really didn't like it. Like, I kind of feel the same that I felt at the end of season 1. I thought it was a bad episode of TV. To be clear, I actually liked the first half of the episode. There were one scene I'm gonna take my notes, just like full disclosure. I usually when I take notes, I only am taking notes on the book stuff so I remember what to say, but I actually took a lot of feeling ones. And one of the things I said at the very beginning, I was like, hey, I love this Lanfear and Rand moment. It's like really good. I know we don't quite deserve it. Like, I wish they would have built it up more in the season, but it's like, I really liked it. And you know, Moraine and Land, they're trying to backtrack there. I was kind of liking that. I thought there were some really cool moments. And then everything was terrible after the first half. And a lot of my complaints, like, obviously I'm a book reader. I have book reader complaints, obviously. But I want to like go on the record that a lot of my complaints are not book reader complaints. We'll start with those to prove my point. One being that this was so anticlimactic. I could not believe Rand's fight. So Rand's fight with Turok, it made me laugh because it was so sudden. But in my head, I was like, you know what? I get it. They don't have time for 2 huge sword fights. I was like, I get it. Turok is the less important sword fight. So I understood it. I was like, that was kind of funny to me, but that's totally fine. That is your fight with Ishii. That is Rand and Ishmael's fight. A stab. I mean, even Matt blowing the horn of Valir is so anticlimactic. They couldn't have let that moment breathe a little bit to make him feel more desperate. He like just stands there and is like, well, guess I'll blow the horn. Like, I'm getting upset. The one bad thing about doing these episodes the night of is like, I don't have time to let my feelings sit, and I'm feeling still kind of angry. It feels like such a waste. So another great example, we have spent so much time this season building up Nynaeve, which I've loved. That's been some of my favorite parts. Building up Nynaeve and Liandrin, okay? Nynaeve's whole healing storyline, Red or whatever. It just completely dropped. Like, when Rand was up there in trouble, I was 100% convinced Nynaeve was going to rush in. Egwene rushed in. Typically, we'll talk about that in a second. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Egwene rushes in. But then Matt stabs him. You know, he stabbed him and all stuff. I'm like, okay, Egwene's holding it off, and now she can't do it anymore. So now, Nynaeve, she couldn't heal Elaine because it wasn't a strong enough connection. She couldn't heal Elaine. But they're going to get to the top. She's going to see Rand dying, and that will unleash Nynaeve. No? She literally just doesn't do anything? Like, just from a show perspective. This is not from a book. Like, the show built Nynaeve up to be able to heal Rand in that moment. Not the books. The show did. And just completely didn't deliver on it. Matt, nothing delivered on, but Matt's been struggling all season, so it's less of a surprise. And then we have Egwene facing off against Forsaken. I have so many problems with Egwene in the show now, and I think I'm just going to save those whole thoughts for my end of season wrap up. I won't go into it here, but the way they constantly have to make Egwene better than everybody makes the show so uninteresting, and I stand by it. They haven't let Rand have any power, and it feels like other people must feel that this is anticlimactic, right? It's not just me. Circling back to dropped characters, super surprised we don't see from Liandrin again. Super surprised Swan was literally in one episode. Like, we're not going to hear anything from her. Min, where did Min go? Who knows? Doesn't matter. So along with dropped storylines, it feels like we have very dropped people too, like just storylines. I was going to mention this last episode, but didn't want to seem like a sourpuss. Ignitar and Loial, like, were trapped and then they suddenly weren't. No explanation. I also think it's interesting how the Heron Blade has never been explained once in this TV show. That is something they rely on book readers to know. Non-book readers, have you gotten the Heron Blade thing? Are you still like, why is the Heron matter? Oh, this is a great one too. So when Matt stabs someone with the knife this episode, he dies instantly. But when Rand is stabbed, it's fine. That goes back. I know I told you guys I forgave them. You know, in episode 8 of last season, they stab Loial and Uno with it, and then they're just fine and alive. And we didn't ask questions. And I was going to give them that. But you can't make the same mistakes. We were going to pretend that didn't happen, and then Anyway. I think it's dumb that they try to have a moment of tension that Rand will be gentled. No one believes Rand will be gentled. It doesn't make sense for the show. It's kind of like when they try to do fake out deaths to Nynaeve a million times because no one believes it. Put your tension somewhere else. I laughed out loud when Rand looks up and the sun is shining down on Elaine and he's like, "Who are you?" Just not the moment, in my opinion. It was anticlimactic. It dropped storylines. It didn't earn any moments that it tried to do. I didn't like it. I didn't think it was good. I didn't think it was good from a book perspective because I think they could have made better choices, and I didn't think it was good from a regular show perspective because they keep not being consistent in the show. People might like this episode. If you did, I'm very happy for you. I did not. And I don't like to speak now because I'm in the moment, you know? I'm in the moment. Too in the moment. But as of right now, I just don't think I'll be returning for season 3. And again, it's not even like oh my gosh, you desecrated the books. No, I still have the books. I can read the books anytime I want, which, by the way, watching this episode made me want to just go reread The Great Hunt right now. I can reread the books. Who cares? I just wanted it to be good from a show perspective. And Lanfear is a perfect example of this because Lanfear really isn't like book Lanfear. I'm on Team Lanfear, by the way. She's the only thing I liked about this episode. She was fantastic. Love her. I'm joining her side because that's the most interesting side of this show. She's the most interesting person, bar none, of this episode. And she did a great job. That's the only thing I liked about this episode. It's a depressing way to end this. I will be doing a season wrap-up that will unfortunately be more negative than I expected. I expected to be much more positive. As a preview, I will just talk about, I think the show had great individual moments. The show had some great scenes and individual storylines, but as a whole, they cannot tell a cohesive story, whether it follows the book or not. Just within the show itself, they are struggling telling a story arc, finishing a story, and it's just harming the show overall. And instead of making it feel like The Wheel of Time or like a very innovative thing or deeply lore heavy like The Wheel of Time is, it's just feeling generic. Okay, I'm gonna be done now. I'm really sorry if this was negative for you. I hope you clicked off if you loved the episode and didn't want to hear me complain about it. I will have much more cohesive thoughts in my final series wrap-up where I can actually analyze and put things together. This is just my gut reaction. If you like these kind of videos and want more Wheel of Time content or see my final season wrap-up, please like and subscribe. That is the best way to support me. If you want to see what I'm currently reading as well as other nerdy rants or just immediate reactions, I posted my immediate reaction tonight on my Instagram. You can follow me there at bookborn.reviews. I'll see you next time. Bye.